Yes, I made it back from the summit. No issues at all. Yeah, imagine that. So the Israel summit went off without a glitch at all. It was great. And it just goes to show that these people that go online, these social media people, I'll just say it like that. Yeah, I'll be nice today. They have no heart for anything. The threats that they put forth, in the end, most of these people are paid actors. They're just like the Hollywood actors who have really not ever given anything to society. They've never really had any type of skin in the game for anything. And so when you show strength, it's amazing what happens. The bully backs down. And the great news on the other end is the hotel that this had originally been booked at has caved, and it's going to work out just great for Hayavel and for the Israel Summit, the Israel guys along the way. So more about that in just a few moments, as I'm going to get into the Torah portion here in just a minute. And I'll give a bit of an Israel Summit report in the middle of that. But for me, I met with, it was great seeing a lot of people that I had not seen, some of them in 15 years. Someone walked up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" Yeah, it was from Oregon. They had come in. And I tell you, the main thing, I'll go ahead and get into a little bit of this. The main thing for me is seeing people there. A lot of people came some from Oregon, from Washington State, from Arizona, from California, various places. And so seeing who was there and seeing who was not. And I know that there's a lot of people that this was this was something that was, the difficulties that were, and it's difficult to get time off. But let's face it, if there's a lot of folks, a lot of leaders, there's a lot of ministry leaders, congregations that did not even send a representative. Some that probably didn't even know about it. And how could you possibly be standing with Israel right now and not know that an Israel summit was happening in Tennessee? I don't know how that could happen, but that's not my business really. But it was wonderful seeing people, meeting a lot of new people. I can tell you that if you want Israel wine, I found the greatest place. There's a husband, wife, and they have some business partners. IsraelGoodWines.com. I was actually able to purchase some, and we had some Torah Rosé at Life Assembly this past Shabbat. So Israel Good Wines, a great site, great people. They're just starting to build this business, and so the more that we can help them, help them by buying Israel wine, right? The more we can help them in this endeavor, the better it's going to be for them. They'll be able to go and negotiate with shipping and all of those things, and the prices will be able to come down. So we may be paying a little bit more of a premium right now, but in the end, it's going to be good. And we're also it's not just a blessing Israel for me to buy a bottle of Torah wine. Okay, it was great. We had a good time at our Shabbat service. There was a little bit of a profit for Torah, but let me tell you, when you're when you're there, gathered with some people that love Israel, and you take that, you say the blessing. There's just that connection with the land. That is, as the commercial would say, priceless. The other thing is I met some folks that are part of, one of them is the owner, and some that are part of a horse farm, a horse therapy farm in Israel, outside the Dead Sea, Ruthie's Horse Farm, okay? And they take care of, they have the horses, actually the cowboys were there. If you saw a riding arena that was built in Israel by the cowboys, and I got to meet one of the cowboys. They were there doing this, and they put this together. They have a great vision now those that are Ruthie and her husband that own this. And so far they've had over 4,500 children come through there. They are working with children that have gone through trauma, which is unfortunately very easy to find in Israel as someone who's gone through trauma. They are working with young women, young ladies that have gone through very difficulties in life. I'll just put it that way. And they're also working with the IDF soldiers, bringing them in. And the story was told of one soldier that came and they sent him over to just brush a horse. And the next thing they looked over and he was brushing this horse and just weeping. And I sat and talked with the people, with Ruthie herself, and it didn't take me long to figure out that we need to be a part of that. So for those of you who continue to give to Israel, give to this ministry, we are now a part of that. And we will be for quite some time, I believe, in helping to build this vision. You know, there's been so much death and destruction through these past months. It just felt really good to be able to give a sizable donation and continued donations unto something that's bringing forth healing. All right, with that, let me go to the Torah portion and this is the last Torah portion of the book of Vayikra. But it is by my regulations, beginning in chapter 26, verse 3. If you live by my regulations. Wow, here's this word again. This huge word that we deal with every day in our life, and the word is if. In Hebrew, of course, it's not if. It is im, which is an aleph and a final mem. Basically, it would be the power of water. What is the power of water? Well, first of all, it can give forth life. You know, there's a few things that we need in life. Number one is air. You can live about 3 minutes without air. You can live about 3 days without water. About the second day, you start to not feel too good. Actually, really the first day, but by the third day, you're pretty much it. You've got to have water. So we need water for life. But on the other hand, water can bring forth death. It has a destructive nature to it also. Anybody that's ever been through a flood, a hurricane, the rain that comes with a tornado, various things. There's people in Oklahoma. We're very familiar, Kathy and I and our family are very familiar with that. There's people in Oklahoma that have shelters there. They got into their shelter, rode out the tornado, everything was fine. And then the flood came, filled up their tornado shelter, somehow were trapped in there and died. Wow. It's a choice. Water can be either life or death. Let me give it to you like this. You decide to do a little canoeing or kayaking or something like that. And so you're floating down this stream, and it turns into a river. As you're floating down, you see a sign that says Y up ahead. Okay, well, that means that I've got a choice to make when I get there. As you get a little closer, there are more instructions regarding this Y, this branch in the river. And it says to the right is going to be some turbulence. It's going to be some rapids. It's going to be some obstacles. But to the left is a waterfall. It's a cliff. You have a decision to make. Well, I mean, I don't want to go through the tribulations and the rapids and the obstacles. So I'm just going to take the smooth water until I go over a cliff. It's kind of a real picture of life here. That people don't want the obstacles. No, I just want smooth water. I want nothing. I had to drive through. I drove through the river pass, Koi, river pass the other day going to Tennessee and back. And at one point, this river, it's dammed up, and there's a lake and all that kind of stuff in there. So, but you're coming up, and the water is absolutely glass smooth, not a ripple, nothing, until you reach the dam, and then all of a sudden it drops off the other side and is crashing into the rocks. You could have chosen to have that smooth water, no turbulence, no obstacles, no problems of life, nothing at all, and then you got a waterfall and you die. Or you choose the other branch, which is, yeah, there's going to be some troubles, there's going to be some trials, there's going to be some obstacles, you're going to have to go through a few rapids, but in the end you come out on the other end at this, one of the most beautiful sights in this area to me is I've driven that river pass in the morning early. You come out on the other end, the fog is on that lake, and it's beautiful, and especially in the springtime. We have a choice in our life of which one we want to do. And this is basically comes down to what the Father is giving us with his instructions. Do you want what seems to be a nice, easy life, and all of a sudden the end is going to be destruction? Or are you willing to embrace and flow through some of the problems of life to come out on the other end into his blessing and eternity? Now, the choices sometimes are not immediately apparent. If you're like, well, I'm gonna take this easier path there. It's like, well, this is no problem. It's not, it doesn't, the cliff is not right there, like, 10 feet. No, you keep going a little ways until you find it. So in life, sometimes our choices that we make, it's not immediately apparent what the consequences are going to be. But we understand that if we follow his commandments, the end is always going to be for our good. Now, in verses 4 through 5, it says that your threshing time, well, okay, back up. Then I will provide the rain you need in its season. The land will yield its produce, and the trees in the field will yield their fruit. Trees in the field. I think there's a verse on that. I think there's a psalm about that says the righteous man is like a tree planted by the rivers. So creation, as you know, I don't call what is out my window here nature. I don't call it Mother Nature. I don't call the earth my mother. It is creation that was given to me by my Heavenly Father. So as I look out at creation is to teach me about how to live my life, the consequences of life. The very essence of how we are to live is taught to us in cycles. On a weekly cycle that, Shabbat, we need our time of rest. We need our time of not just resting physically, but separating ourselves from the cares of the world to meet with him, with like-minded people, and therefore we gain our strength for the upcoming week and the trials that are going to be there. But creation also tells us about seasons, about the yearly cycles. Right now we're right in that time between spring and summer. The leaves are on the trees, the fruit, the trees are bearing. We actually got through the fall this year, or the spring this year, without a late frost in North Carolina. So there's going to be peaches galore, even on my trees. And I'm going to have to now protect them from the squirrels and from the birds. But I'm looking forward to those peaches and maybe some homemade peach ice cream and a hand churn here coming up pretty soon. But these trees, they go through seasons. You know, what do you have? You have spring, where you have the blossoms, and then you have summer, which you have the fruit. And you go into fall, in which the leaves fall off, and then the winter, in which it appears that nothing's going on. But that's not really true. The tree is, in a way, dormant, yes, but many trees spend that time of the winter working on their root system. Where are you at these days? I ask myself this question: where am I right now? I know where I look out the window, and it's springtime and it's summer, and you know we're seeing the fruit, and the tomato plants that we put in are starting to bloom, and the squash they're starting to bloom, and we're looking forward to fruit. But is my life lining up with what I see out the window? Not really. In a lot of ways, it's I feel somewhere in a fall or a winter even. A time of when, like in Israel, in the late winter, what do? You go through a pruning. In ways, without going into details, I kind of feel like I've been in some of that time. But what is the pruning all about? It's about fruit. What is the developing roots all about? It's about preparing for fruit. And so these verses are talking to us about we need to be cognizant, aware of the seasons that the Father has for us, and embrace those seasons. Sometimes that's not easy. I remember very well going to Israel in 2012 with Hayavel, going out to the vineyard, and Josh and Nate are teaching me how to prune the vines, and it's like, you know, these vines have all these branches coming off, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we're going to cut, like, you know, the end off, like I do with my peach tree or my apple tree. We're just going to cut a little bit here and a little bit there, and they take the pruners and cut it down, that branch down, to within an eighth to a quarter to a half an inch, depending on the vine and the variety of fruit. And I'm like, this is going to die. What are you guys doing? You don't have a clue what you're doing. You're killing this vine, cutting it back that close. And then I go back the next year for the harvest, and I see that those branches came back, and the fruit, the leaves, the fruit was overwhelming, that in one short season they could produce that much fruit. And the reason why they could produce that much fruit is because we brought them back to the edge of death. In doing so, it was we pruned them to a perfect environment for producing maximum fruit, and then enjoying the wine of those labors later on. Nothing like it. When we embrace the seasons, when we embrace the process that we need to go through, and then we come out on the other end, and then we enjoy together and give the Father glory, give a blessing unto Him for the very life that is producing fruit. And we see that all in these scriptures. Now, just a statement, okay? So if you're, and I'll move on, but think about this. If you're not producing fruit, well, you must be in sin. No. You must be evil. No. You must have done something wrong. Not necessarily. It may be that you're just in a time that you're going through the process. So embrace the process. If we're not in a fruit-bearing season in our lives, we should be in a root-developing season in our lives. Now, verse 6, it says, I will give shalom to the land. You will lie down to sleep unafraid of anyone I will rid the land of wild animals. The sword will not go through your land. You will pursue your enemies. They will fall before your sword. Moves on from there. Guys, that's not what Israel is today. That's so far from what Israel is. As I woke up this morning and looked at the news as I do first thing, one of the first things I do is I check usually it's Israel National News. That's the first one up on my bookmarks on my phone. And this morning, 3 more soldiers have been killed in the fighting of Gaza as a explosive device went off, and 3 more gave their lives. By the way, I'll be talking to Hanok. The Israel update this week will partially be regarding this so-called fire, which it's just in these days with satellites and drones and everything, it's phenomenal to me that a lie can be propagated so quickly, and then when it is disproved beyond a shadow of a doubt, the lie is still there. And part of that is because of the weakness of the leadership of Israel. The first thing that Bibi Netanyahu did, and I'm not a fan of Netanyahu by any stretch of the imagination, but the first thing he did was apologize for something. It's like, wait a minute, now it's being proven that the IDF did not start that fire. It was munitions that were stored. At this point in time, it appears it was munitions that were stored in the midst of civilians that exploded. But Netanyahu is already apologized for the mistakes of the IDF. We're not in those verses right now. And that brings me to the summit. What is happening today in Israel? Is Israel as a nation turning to God? It's a good question. Is Israel as a nation turning to God? Let me break it down into 2 sections. Number 1, politically. Are the politicians turning to God? I can give you a very direct answer on that is not 100%, because there's always exceptions to the rule. But for the vast majority of politicians, the answer is absolutely not. It's not just no. It's not just not, but it's absolutely no. Absolutely not. To think that the vast majority of the politicians in Israel, and I guess we could put in religious leaders in Israel, no, I don't see it. Are the people in Israel turning to God? Yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, absolutely yes. The stories, the things that are happening, the stories that I've been able to hear, the miracles that are coming forth of what has happened in Israel is overwhelming. The safety, the protection that the Almighty is giving to the IDF, to those involved, to civilians, He is right there in the midst, and people are turning to Him. Regarding the summit, was it life shattering to me, life changing to me, life defining to me? No. Did I learn a few things along the way here and there? Do I think that the summit was a success? Absolutely. Do I appreciate those Josh, Luke, Ben, these men and women, their wives? Luke, who I just did an interview with, him and his wife have 6 children, and he was totally disconnected during the time of the summit. He didn't really have any time to give to his wife to help with the children. And I watched as she was there and just stepped right in, and she understood what Luke had to do in that day. Same with Josh, same with various others that were there, with Zach, with, you know, I could go on and list, but people did the job that was put in front of them. The outcome, success, yes. Like I said, I think we're in that place, continued place of sifting. I remember my grandmother years ago as she would bake a cake. You had to go and she bought the flour, and then I have that sifter actually, and she would put that flour, and that was the part one of the parts I really enjoyed, was doing the sifting of the flour, because I knew that at the end of the sifting of the flour was going to be the mixing of the ingredients, and then there was going to be the licking of the bowl, okay? So I did have an agenda regarding this. But how long, you know, I would say to Granny, she said, no, we gotta sift that again. Okay, well, how many times do you have to sift that flour until it's right for the cake? Well, it's until Granny said it's right for the cake. How much sifting do we have to go through? It's however much sifting the Father feels is necessary for us to go through in order for there to be the licking of the bowl at the end. But I feel that this summit and various things that go on like it, these are times of sifting right now that we're going through. Where am I going to turn out on the other end? Will I be a part of the fruit or not? I mean, that really is the answer, the question that is today. And by our choices, our ifs in life, we're answering that question. Probably the number one take that I have, besides meeting Ruthie and various ones there, getting to reconnect with some people, with of course spending a little bit of time as we could with a dear friend and comrade in this, Tommy Waller. The main take regarding the whole thing, and folks, it was, you know, if anybody that watched the summit, it's very much Christian. The language, and I'll just go out on a real limb here and say that the reason for that is because, for the most part, Hebrew roots Messianic communities, people are not embracing Israel. If we wanted to put together an Israel conference that was only for Messianics and Hebrew roots, I dare say we could probably rent the back room at Burger King or something, maybe Village Inn. That would be it. So if you're judging what is there, and some of the people that may not have, and I'm not talking specifically to anybody that's listening here probably, but for those that would say, well, I'm not going to be a part because of it's more Christian than okay, whatever. Who is standing with Israel? A representative from Ken Copeland's ministry is standing with Israel. Various others that, I have a lot of difference theologically, lifestyle-wise, but, in the end, who's standing with Israel? Who's going to go through the sifting? My point was probably at the last panel discussion. It was the Israel guys were up there. And Josh, I believe it was Josh, brought forth this thought. What is the difference between being pro-Israel and being Zionist? What's the difference between being pro-Israel and being Zionist? Now, there's all kinds of things in Messianic circles today that the mental midgets want to talk about and discuss, that being Zionistic is evil. Well, let me just, because I can, read to you a verse, or a few verses, that were written by some people in exile that were separating themselves from the pro-Israel crowd to the Zionist crowd. And the verses are in Psalm 137. By the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept. As we remembered Zion, we had hung up our lyres on the willows that were there. When those who had taken us captive asked us to sing them a song, our transgressors demanded joy from us. Sing us one of the songs from Zion. How can we sing a song about Yahweh, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, here on foreign soil? If I forget you, Yerushalayim, may my right hand wither away. May my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I fail to remember you, if I fail to count Yerushalayim the greatest of all my joys. It's a psalm, and I could go to verse after verse, psalm after psalm, those that were not just pro-Israel, but those that were Zionistic. What is the difference between being pro-Israel and being Zionistic? Josh Waller nailed it. When he, not being a sports guy, kind of the same as I am, I've been to one I went to a World Series when I was 12 years old because they took me there as a patrol boy in elementary school. But other than that, I don't know that I've ever been to an actual, arena of some kind. I've watched a few on television, okay? You have those in the stands, and you have those on the field. That's what is true of any sports venue that you go to. Doesn't matter what kind of ball, what shape of ball, and what you're doing with the ball. That is the typical thing that separates everybody, is those that are in the stands and those that are on the field. A pro-Israel person is someone who has purchased a ticket, has come in to the stadium, they've gone and got their hot dogs, their popcorn, their Coke or other beverage of their choice. They have probably dressed up in their team colors. They might have a cheese head or painted face or painted other parts of their body which should not really be shown on television. They've got their little banner in their hand, their flag, and they're going to sit up in the stadium during the complete time that the game is on. They're going to yell and scream at the top of their lungs. They're going to wave their flag. They're going to hope that they get on television with their face there so that everybody can see and they can go back and show their friends that they were on TV. But in the end, what did they actually do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was proven during COVID that you can play a game with a baseball, a football, soccer ball, whatever, golf ball, whatever you want to do. The game can be played without people in the stands. Is there a void? Yep. But in the end, the score is on the board. One team lost, the other team won. and the game was played. So, simply put, you can be pro-Israel. You can have your ticket, have your little flag on your car or in your yard or whatever you want to do. Post on Facebook, I'm pro-Israel. Do absolutely nothing and think you're doing something because you're in the stands. A Zionist, however, decides to get on the field. A Zionist makes the decision, I'm going to help carry the ball. I'm going to do whatever I have to do, whatever I'm called to do, whatever the coach, the owner of the team, allow me to do, call me to do, I'm going to do. If I need to get out and block, if I need to get out and tackle, if I need to whatever it is that I need to do, if I need to be the kid that brings the water, that brings the towels, if I'm the one that needs to look down at my teammate's shoes and say, your shoes are untied, if I need to give a voice of encouragement, whatever it is that I don't want to sit in the stands, I want to be on the field. That's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, between a pro-Israel person and a Zionist. Should we speak against those that are in the stands? No, I don't think so. In the end, they're playing a part. Maybe, they're commenting on Facebook. I post something on Facebook and about being, about Israel, and I get a number of comments from people that are like, "Go, Mike! Yeah, go! Hey, we're with you, man." They've never once prayed for the peace of Jerusalem. They've never once sent a note to anyone in Israel of encouragement. They've never given anything to help with. But hey, they're in the stands. At least I know they're not outside with the, out on the in the parking lot with the terrorists and protesters. Okay, so I'm happy that at least they're in the stands. But on the other hand, they're just in the stands. So they serve their purpose. But I'm not, I guess I ought to go back to a statement by one of my board members and dear friend, B.B. Stevens, who in teaching one day when I was out of town, he was talking about worship. And B.B. is a big sports guy. But he said one time regarding worship, he said, worship should not be a spectator sport, it should be full contact. So my question is regarding Israel. Are people satisfied to be a spectator, or are you full contact? That doesn't mean that, okay, I'm going to give, $100,000 or something. It means at least you're at least delete that, please. Strike that from the court record. You are committed to prayer. Okay? You're committed to prayer for Israel, prayer for the IDF, for the soldiers, to ministries like Hayavel, who I guarantee you, they need the prayer. Maybe you need the practice right now. So I know we do. I'm thankful for those that text me, that email me, and say, we're praying for you. Wow, that means a lot. It means more than I can express. We're praying. We're involved. We're giving when we can. I can't go to Israel right now, but I'm saving up. When's the next tour? You're involved. You're on the field. Or is it just, kind of in the stands and okay, here we are. What does that mean? I'd rather have you doing this than waving a Palestinian flag out in the parking lot. Yeah, but I'm looking for people that want to be on the field. Verse 14. I'll move on. I've probably beat on that dead horse enough. This is the, if you do not listen. But if you do not listen and obey, if you loathe my regulations, reject my rulings in order to not obey all the mitzvot, but cancel my covenant, then I, for my part, will do this to you. I will bring terror upon you and wasting diseases, chronic fever, to dim your sight and sap your strength. No thanks. No thanks. I'd just soon not go there. But if a person desires to go on that, okay, I'm going to take this branch. I know it says there's a cliff, but I'm going that way anyway because I want the smooth sailing. I don't want arguments with my family over, why I do Shabbat instead of Sunday, and I don't want to do. I just don't want to look at my mother-in-law or my mother or my whatever anymore and explain why I don't eat pork. And, no, I don't want bacon wrapped shrimp. Yes, I do, but I don't want it, okay? Let's face it. So he doesn't just, if we take that branch that's going toward the waterfall, it's not like he's like, okay, well, let's just let them go. No, that branch, it says that there's warning signs along the way. Danger ahead. Danger, Will Rogers. If you keep going in this path, there's no real current that you can see. There's no turbulence right now. You can still turn around and paddle this thing back uphill or upstream. It's going to take a little bit more effort, but it can be done. And verses 18 through 46 are about, if you go through one sign, I'm going to put another sign there. And the sign's going to be bigger. And then I'm going to put a bigger sign. And then I'm going to put some obstacle in your way that you've got to get out of the canoe and the kayak, and you're going to have to move. But if you continue to just want to go down that path, that branch of the water is going to bring your destruction. I mean, don't we do the same thing with children? If you've ever raised children, what do? Don't touch the stove. It's hot. Don't touch the stove. Hey. Call their name out. Don't touch. Look at me. Listen to me. Look at me. Don't touch the stove. You raise your voice. You change the wording. But eventually, if the child is that dead set on touching the stove, you got to let them touch the stove. And then they figure out the consequences. And some decide that they just want to keep their hand on the stove. That's called free will. Okay? Now, I want to go all the way to the end, last verse. These are the mitzvot which Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh gave to Moshe for the people of Israel on Mount Sinai. You guys, okay, to the people of Israel, we should be going, oh, that's me, right? But why is it? Let's go back to the Hebrews and where they were in Egypt. They were released from bondage. They came to the Reed Sea. They went through the Reed Sea. They come up on the other side, and they go to Mount Sinai. Wow, what a picture of our redemption, the mikvah, the baptism, and then go straight to the land in which you're going to take your pagan ways that you learned in Egypt. Let's face it, guys, there wasn't a single person that had been that had been in Israel. Well, we could maybe say that Moshe up in that area had been in the land, the border, the biblical borders of the land, but nobody else. Right? This was hundreds of years earlier that Jacob and his family had come into Israel. They have become very pagan, assimilated into the land and customs and traditions of Egypt. And so he could have just redeemed them, taken them out, taken them through a mikvah, a baptism, and take them right into the land with their Egyptian thoughts and traditions. And what would have happened? Can't do. So he took them to Mount Sinai to give them a different way of life. This is where Christianity has failed. Yeah, I said it very, very straight there. Christianity has failed because it has taken people, it redeemed a mikvah, and now to a mountain of their own denominational choosing, which may have some of Egypt and some of Mount Sinai mixed together, and wonder why people don't remain free. Could it be said that some Messianic circles, Hebrew root circles, have done the same thing? Of course. Remember, they came to Mount Sinai. Samek, Yod, Nun, Yod. Protected. Your life is protected. You're embraced by his hands. The commandments are the embracing. He's embracing you, whispering in your ear. This is how to choose the right branch of the river to go down to come to the place of life. Why is it that he did not give the commandments why didn't he take them into the land and give them the commandments? Why didn't he take them to, Elon Moreh, where Abraham went, or to Mount Tabor, or to Mount Zion, or why didn't he take them there? Because he knew, as we read in various places in Leviticus, in Deuteronomy, Devarim, there would be exile. I believe the reason he gave them the commandments at Mount Sinai is to tell them, no matter whether you're in the land or in exile, my commandments are still my commandments and should be followed. But yet, there is a level of the commandments which we can only live by in Israel. You can try to do the Shemitah outside of Israel, kol hakavod. You can try to do the number of years with your fruit, kol hakavod. More power to you. We can try to do all of these things. We can do Shabbat outside. Yeah, the day 7 is day 7, no matter if you're in Israel or not. But anybody that's been there on day 7 knows there's a level of Shabbat. There's a level of kashrut, kosher. There's a level of the commandments. But then there's another level when the temple is rebuilt. There's another level when the priesthood is back in service. The commandments were given outside of Israel because his commandments are his commandments no matter where we are. But there's a level of commandment, of our observance, of our embracing of his commandments that we will only be able to achieve in Israel, then in the time of the temple, in the kingdom. And that's why it says the Torah will go forth from Jerusalem, his word from Mount Zion. For those of us who are Zionists, we understand that. For those that are still in the stands, maybe you're getting it. All right. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing. See you again next week. And until then, of course, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.